Alright. I am just getting everything set up, so bear with me. Alright, we're not doing that tonight, bro. I'm working, so if this is what you guys are coming in here for, then I'm gonna ask you to leave. I don't really care. So you guys can either sit here and be quiet and ask legitimate questions about what I'm going to talk about, or you can go away. I'm not doing this today. Alright, so we're going to give this a minute, try to get people in here. What's up, April? What's up, Lexi? All right, so we're gonna give this probably about 2 minutes. We're gonna get people in here. This is not just regular nonsense chat. This is just gonna be covering what happened today in court. Just kind of talk to you guys about it, those that watched, those that didn't. Kind of before I write the article about what happened. So yeah, you're gonna want to share this out. Let's try to get people watching. So we'll give this 2 minutes. Okay. So you guys need to get snacks. You want to get pens, papers, and go smoke a cigarette. Whatever you need to do. 2 minutes, and we'll get started here. I'm just pulling a few things up here real quick. Six, eight. All right. So we'll give this just another minute. If you guys want to share this out. In the meantime, I'm going to post the rules for you guys. I'm not tolerating bullshit tonight. There's no trolling. The minute that starts happening, you're just immediately going to get silenced on the platform. If you want to ask a legitimate question, you can do that. The rules are being posted. So once again, this is actually really important. So I will be writing an article on this. Well, if you clicked on the video, then you saw what the topic is. All right. All right, so some people will probably join in after. Look, we already have thumbs down. I haven't even fucking started. Of course you guys give thumbs downs. Fucking assholes. All right, once again, I'm not tolerating any bullshit during this stream. So the minute you guys start trolling, I'm immediately just silencing you. We're not doing that tonight. All right, this is actually legitimate stuff. This is stuff that everybody should be listening to, regardless of what side you're on. So we're gonna be talking about a lot of stuff. I will be writing an article on this. Kind of through my notes here, I'm going to sort of paraphrase a little bit of some commentary that happened with witness testimony and verbiage that's actually from documents. When I do the article, it'll be cited exactly. All right, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of heads up on that. Okay. Bro, enough. Okay, again, I am not tolerating people's bullshit tonight. Okay? When I'm done with this, is what we'll do. When I'm done with this, okay, when this is officially done, I'm going to end it, and then I'll come back live. Okay? You guys want to troll during that one? I don't give a fuck. This one, we're not doing that. Okay? Dumb, stupid questions repeatedly. You don't need to know how I'm doing. Okay? You don't need to know when I'm eating, what I eat for dinner. It's not relevant. Okay? All right. So for those of you that are not from Wisconsin or pay attention to what's going on out here, so there is a former Wauwatosa, Wisconsin police officer. His name is Joseph Mensah. He is now currently with Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. Joseph Mensah shot and killed 3 people over a 5-year period. Antonio Gonzalez was the first shooting and killing. Jay Anderson Jr. was the second, and then Alvin Cole was the third. All 3 shootings, District Attorney's Office for Milwaukee refused to file any charges against Joseph Mensah for all three shootings. Already. And essentially ruled all 3 shootings justified. Independent investigator that looked at the cases. This is what I'm saying. Now you're done, bro. Sorry. Looked at the cases, said that there were discrepancies in the cases. The Jay Anderson Jr. shooting was one of the biggest ones, where there were discrepancies. There was contradictions and discrepancies in Mensah's statements. The independent investigator deemed Joseph Mensah to be unfit for duty and a danger to the public, and a danger as far as the likelihood of a 4th shooting to occur as long as he remained a police officer. It was decided that Joseph Mensah resign from the Wauwatosa Police Department. And he is currently being paid for another 13 months, I believe it is. And then he was picked up by Waukesha County Sheriff's Department to be a sheriff over there. So there was, and we'll cite some documents again when I actually write the article on this, which will come out here in the next couple of days, because there's a lot to kind of process, but I wanted to just kind of talk about it with you guys first. So because of the so many discrepancies that were involved, especially with the Jay Anderson Jr. shooting, the attorney that is representing all three of the families, her name is Kimberly Motley. She filed what's called a John Doe motion. So the statute on that is 968.02 section 3. I'll link this here in the chat for you guys. All right, so that's what that is. So basically 968.02 section 3, it states, if a district attorney refuses or is unavailable to issue a complaint, a circuit judge may permit the filing of a complaint if the judge finds there is probable cause to believe that the person to be charged has committed an offense after conducting a hearing. If the district attorney has refused to issue a complaint, he or she shall be informed of the hearing and may attend. The hearing shall be ex parte without the right of cross-examination. So as far as ex parte, what that means is that there is no cross-examination that's allowed to be done, so there's no opposing counsel, okay? And then any witnesses that would be up on the stand, there is no right to cross-examination, and they have no right to legal counsel as well. Now, multiple subpoenas were issued out. And then, according to court records, Joseph Mensah, who is the officer that's involved in the shooting and killing, filed a motion to quash the subpoena, which was to be expected. And then the Chief Barry Weber, also filed a motion to quash. Chief Weber's reason behind it was that he doesn't have any pertinent information. He doesn't have any knowledge of the investigation. The hearing, as far as the two motion to quashes, will happen at a later date. So we'll end up reporting on that. So I'm going to say this one more time, okay? There's no bullshit tonight. I'm literally just banning people as your stupid comments come up. I'm not tolerating it. Understood? The minute you guys start trolling, the minute you start talking about this fucking Gary I don't give a fuck. I'm just immediately banning people. Okay? Understood? So enough. This is where, like, you guys, your side, should just shut the fuck up and listen. It's really simple. Okay? This is where you guys don't listen, and then you start putting out your rhetoric. Quiet down and listen. Okay? The case number in Wisconsin, if you wanna follow this. Okay, I'm gonna load this up. I'll put the link down here. All right, so in Wisconsin, when you want to look up cases, you go on CCAP. So if you want to follow documents that were submitted, dates of the hearings, because this is live streamed within the court. Okay. All right, so this is the official court record for this hearing. Okay. So in this as well, you can find the live stream link for these actual hearings. They put the links on here, and then you can watch them. So for all you restreamers, you get content. Okay. Probably should have fucking restreamed this. All right, so that's that. So I'm just kind of giving you guys some legal background stuff here. Okay, so again, with these John Doe hearings, they're considered ex parte, which means there is no cross-examination, so you don't have a second lawyer in there asking additional questions. It's just the person that filed the petition to the court, speaking the witnesses, putting in exhibits, and the judge is allowed to ask questions. So kind of similar to almost like a bench trial. So that's kind of what happened today. These types of hearings are required to be public. So today in court, it was extremely strict. So per the chief judge, they were only allowing 36 people total, and that was including everybody that was in, up by the judge and all that, and then people that were in the gallery. So obviously, no cell phones, no hats, things like that. But they were extremely strict about anybody recording anything, touching their phones for any reason today, things like that. They only approved TMJ4 to be the only camera crew that was in there recording the hearing. So, but this is also why they live streamed it, so that everybody could witness it. So, so yeah, so that was that. The judge is Glenn Yamahiro, who's presiding over the hearing. Once again, Joseph Mensah, the officer involved in all three shootings, and Chief Weber of the Wauwatosa Police Department filed a motion to quash. Those motions will be argued at a later date. So as far as kind of how today started, they had three witnesses. One was a friend of J. Anderson Jr., and he kind of testified to his relationship with Jay, kind of what they were doing that night, laying out some character witness kind of things, and he provided some pretty crucial information that was pretty relevant. So essentially, they, the guys start out and they're gonna go hang out for the evening, go hang out at a bar. This particular bar that they went to, you needed an ID to get in. Okay, obviously in bars you have to show an ID, right? If you're gonna drink, you got to be 21 or older, whatnot. So that piece of information is, as far as the ID, is going to be extremely pertinent when it comes to this case. Now, kind of the background when it comes to statements and things like that conflicting. So Chief Weber, again, like in his motion to quash, he puts in there that he wasn't part of the investigation. He has no pertinent information when it comes to the investigation, because Wauwatosa PD was not the investigating department. So we hear later on in the hearing that that is actually not true at all. yeah, the second witness that they called today was the autopsy doctor that performed the autopsy on Jay Anderson. Now, she works for Milwaukee County Medical Examiner's Office. She performed the autopsy on Jay Anderson June 23rd, 2016. Okay. Now, what was interesting, some keynotes that I had written down that was interesting about her testimony. So there's a law in Wisconsin, and this is based off of the Kenosha shooting with Michael Bell some years ago, where his father, Michael Bell Sr., fought to get some legislation done where police departments cannot investigate themselves, especially for police-involved shootings. Now, this particular law, I'm going to link here in the chat for you guys. I'm literally just banning all of you people, bro. Like, I don't really care. Just give me a minute, people. So this is where you people need to just shut the fuck up. All right. So anyway, so with this particular law, Wisconsin Statute 175.47. So this talks about officer-involved deaths, where agencies need to have a written policy regarding the investigation of officers involved in deaths to individuals, where outside agencies have to come in and be the lead investigation team. And the autopsy specialist indicates that there were multiple people that were in the room. There was a Milwaukee detective, so Milwaukee is supposedly taking over the investigation, so they can be in the room. There was a forensic investigator from the ME's office that was in there. And then there was a Wauwatosa detective that was in the autopsy room at the time of the autopsy. Now, remember, these people really should not have any type of involvement in this case because their department was the department that was involved in the shooting. The autopsy was performed the morning of June 23rd, 2016. Now, it was relayed to the autopsy specialist. Her name is Dr. Tolomic. Where she was told by police officers that were in there that a 25-year-old was shot by a Wauwatosa police officer because they failed to obey commands to exit the vehicle. Okay, so she testified to this today. When Jay Anderson was shot, he was transported over to Frederick Hospital, and then that was at around 4:05 a.m. At 8:20 in the morning is when she actually received his body and started the autopsy. There's several people that are investigating this. Several people that are in the room. They showed today 4 pictures of the gunshot wounds. So Jay Anderson has 4 wounds in his body. Okay. Now the kind of myth behind all of this is that Jay Anderson is in the driver's side seat. He's parked in a park. Joseph Mensah walks up, kind of wakes him up. Mensah's ordering him, giving him commands. Jay Anderson lunges for a gun, and that's when Mensah opens fire. Okay. Now that story, though, is not consistent as far as the wounds are concerned. So they start showing pictures, and the first entry wound is above, it's by his right ear. Okay. So it was kind of like right here. The exit is behind the left ear. And the doctor had testified that the entry wound was straight, like a straight line, through and through straight line, kind of parallel to where Mensah would have been standing. Now, the thing to kind of note about that is that if where Mensah is standing, Mensah's on the passenger side of the car, and had Jay Anderson lunged for the gun that was in the passenger seat, that first entry wound would not have been a straight line from this part of from the right side of his face to behind the left ear. It was literally straight through. The second entry wound was again on the right side. And it exited again behind the left ear. So 2 shots from the right side, and then exited, through and through. Again, a straight line travel. The third shot hit him in the right cheek, and there was no exit on that. And then the fourth shot hit him in the right shoulder. So it hit him it was kind of above. This was the last shot. So shot 4, where in the video, you also see Jay Anderson slunch over. So the path of travel with that wound would have been consistent with him falling over. That bullet, there was no exit to that as well, and that landed in his back muscles on his left side. Okay, so 6 shots were fired in total, 4 of which hit Jay Anderson. The first 2 shots, like I said, straight line through and through, not consistent with an individual that was leaned over, lunging for a gun. So there's inconsistencies as far as statements from Joseph Mensah when it comes to that, and then document after document after document that law enforcement had written up. Now, they did a toxicology report on Jay Anderson, and I'm not a fucking toxicologist, so trying to understand some of this shit. But basically, his blood alcohol level was a 0.114. So consistent with the story that him and his friend went out to a bar. They had some drinks. Trying to decipher how many potential drinks he had was difficult because people's metabolism, reacts differently. At the time, Jay Anderson was 6 feet tall, weighed 166 pounds. They were talking about different types of testings that they do when it comes to like the concentration of alcohol in the body. Now, as we know, when we're alive, as we are having drinks, our metabolism starts, kind of burning through that alcohol. When you die, it stops, right? So when they took the blood alcohol level, his body would not have metabolized any further. So that was a big thing. The autopsy specialist concluded, and this should be a no-brainer, that the cause of death was gunshots. Okay. Now, the manner of death, she labeled a homicide. Okay. Now, when it comes to autopsy specialists in how they're listing off different manners of death, she stated that there's 5 manners of death. First one is natural, so that's if you die in your sleep, heart attack, things like that. Accident, you fall off a ladder type shit, right? Suicide, I think we all know what suicide is. Homicide, and it's basically listed at death by the hands of another person. And then the 5th manner of death is undetermined. So whether there's not enough information to determine how this person died, if there's 2 causes of death, but one doesn't really outweigh the other, it becomes undetermined. Now, the judge did ask, and so did Attorney Motley, essentially how she came to the conclusion of homicide. Was it just the pure definition of died by hands of another, or is there more that goes involved in that? So Attorney Motley asked that question, and so did the judge. The judge wanted more clarification on this as well. So the doctor's response was that she goes off of the entire investigation, reports that are filed, so police reports, any medical reports, so like from his time over at Freighter, videos from the scene, medical examination, investigation. They go by other videos. So one, you have the scene video where Mensah opens fire, but then there's another video of Mensah later on, which we'll cover in a later covering of this. They go by the actual autopsy findings. They go by toxicology reports. All of these different elements that are included to determine, which manner of death is involved. And so her reasoning behind homicide was further than just died by hands of another. So it kind of extended past that just very simple definition. So it wasn't just that Mensah shot him and that's why, it's ruled a homicide. Based off of the evidence that she was looking at with all of these different things, it went above and beyond, again, just that definition. So that was pretty crucial. She had signed off on the autopsy report on July 19th. So the initial autopsy was conducted June 23rd, started at 8:20 in the morning. And then a few weeks later, July 19th, she signed off on it and determined that it was in fact homicide, again, above that simple definition. And that was her words. It had nothing to do with just the definition. So I'll give you guys kind of a second to kind of break some of that down. If you have any questions, I'm just going to grab my coffee. If you have questions pertinent to anything I've just talked about, type them. Anything other will be deleted. So I thought it was, for me, and this, I'm not going off notes or testimonies, anything like that in this part. For me, I thought it was interesting when she was listing the 5 manners of death, and when she listed for homicide, and basically their simple definition of that is died by hands of another. And then I found it even more interesting where they go deeper into what that actually means. So was it as simple as, here's this situation, officer opens fire because, bad guy, does something they shouldn't be doing? Or does the medical examiner actually really look at all these different types of evidences, police reports? Do they actually watch videos from the scene? Are they, looking at this stuff? So, and based off her testimony, looking at all of this stuff, it took it so much more than bad guy did something wrong, officer shoots. So I thought that was a really, really crucial piece of evidence, right? And this is where, I think it's important. We've talked about this on the platform many times, right? Where, and I'm going to say the other side for the sake of labels right now, where the other side sees black male has gun, officer shoots, black male dies, justified shooting, right? And they stop there, okay? Where then you have a bunch of other people that are actual critical thinkers, and they're not buying into this black criminality bullshit, and they start asking questions. They want to know a little bit more. They start asking the whys, the hows, right? So when this doctor is testifying, and this is where I'm paying attention very closely to what she said, and she's talking about the direction of travel between the bullets, how they're traveling like right to left and all these things. So based off of Mensah's statement that he's giving with Jay Anderson lunging over to the passenger seat to grab this gun that's over here, that would have meant that Jay was slouched down. So the angle of which the bullets are entering his body would not have been, straight through. There would have been downward angles, things like this. She couldn't determine how far Mensah would have been from Anderson. We see in the video that there's clips of the video that's out. We'll release the full thing. So we thought that was important because he is a distance away, and we're going to kind of get into some of that more police stuff. But yeah, I thought some very critical things that she said. Again, one, that she labeled it a homicide, and it was above just the very simple definition of died by hands of another. She reviewed all of the evidences that she was given, and basically like a legitimate type homicide. When we think homicide, somebody was murdered, right? And then again with the 4 shots, and they showed Jay Anderson They showed his head. They showed the bullet wounds. I've already seen these things, but still, you know, obviously not easy to look at. Especially being out there and filming all these different protests, and, you know, especially being here in Milwaukee and marching through Wauwatosa and all these things. And Jay Anderson is one of these names. You know, it's almost like you can remove yourself a bit when you hear like George Floyd and you're not from Minnesota. When you hear Breonna Taylor and you're not from out there, you know, you sort of be removed. But when you're in these cities and you're hearing these names and you're walking down the streets that these people were actually killed, it's different. And then you're looking at medical examiner pictures, and you're looking at the body and you're seeing bullet wounds. You know, regardless whether it's justified shooting or not. I mean, that's obviously very difficult things to look at. So, you know, and then again too, regardless justified shooting or not a justified shooting, either way, somebody lost a loved one. You know, so still very difficult, you know, to listen to. But yeah, so some very crucial information that the autopsy doctor had testified to. Now, she did mention, so, you know, I mentioned that there were multiple people that were in the room with her. She did mention that it is typical for law enforcement to be in the room when they're conducting the autopsy. So pretty consistent with what we see on TV. But something interesting to note with Wauwatosa, so this is Detective Lewandowski. You're going to hear his name come up in a lot of different things that Never.Stop reports on, and you know, my friend Isaiah with Wisconsin Examiner. But Detective Lewandowski is standing in this autopsy room. Now, they did find some traces of potential medication, and they did find some traces of cannabinoid, so THC. Now, however, when they're doing their toxicology report or their screenings or whatever, if it kind of hits on these things, they're essentially supposed to perform an actual screening. The cannabinoid hit and I don't know the name of the thing, when it came to medication, they did not do further screenings on that at all. Now, that is also important because it's been, you know, again, when it comes to Mensah's statements that he's giving to different investigators, you know, that are looking into the case. So all of his kind of witness account of what happened, right? And essentially he's going to be, you know, for the sake of argument and terminology, he's going to be the best witness because he's standing there. At least that's what we hope, right? So Mensah's statements is, you know, that he leans for this gun. You know, he mentioned Jay Anderson was sleeping. Now the family and the attorney have maintained that basically Jay Anderson is woken up. He's obviously intoxicated from the bar, you know, and he's kind of startled when he wakes up. So different movements, you know, essentially are going to need to be looked at. Now, the third person, and somebody had asked who the older gentleman was. So that gentleman, his name is William Harmoning. Okay. William Harmoning is a retired law enforcement officer. I believe he said 37 years on the force. He he was a professor for a little while. He's done all these different types of things when it comes to law enforcement and criminal justice. And now he is an expert witness when it comes to like forensic psychology when it's involved in officer-involved shootings. So he has looked at approximately 200 different cases of officer-involved shootings in 31 states. Okay. Now, some of the more notable ones, you guys will recognize these names, but Michael Brown, Donsray Hamilton, which also happened here in Milwaukee, and George Floyd. So he's been an expert witness on those cases. So you'll see this gentleman again when it comes to the George Floyd trial and all that, because he is actively involved in that. He has, just for the haters that are here or watching or restreaming, so he primarily testifies for the petitioner side, okay? But he has also been an expert witness on the defense side as well. So he kind of described his process in taking cases where when he's contacted and approached to look at a case, he'll review evidence and then kind of give his opinion based off of what he's reviewed. And then from that point, becomes a contract or not a contract to bring him on for whichever side, to contract him on to be a witness. Now, one thing that he noted very early on during testimony is that there is bias in investigations, okay? And he said that it is almost always present, right? And I thought that was a very key thing to note, especially for the people that stop at so-and-so had gun or whatever. Regardless of whatever the situation is, he's stating that in all of his years of law enforcement, plus the 200 cases now that he's independently, examined through 31 different states, that there's almost always a bias when these officer-involved shootings happen. Okay, so he's also saying that there's really not a comprehensive independent investigation. It just doesn't really happen. And he gave an example, though, of essentially where he has seen it where it does work, and he gave the example of Illinois, where local departments in Illinois do not like Illinois State Police. Illinois State Police do not like local departments. So he said when there is tension between the two agencies, so the one that's involved in the shooting and the one that's investigating the shooting, he said when there's actual tension involved, then they start seeing less bias because the agency is thoroughly conducting that investigation, and the bias is removed. So I thought that was really something interesting to kind of listen to, right? So it's not just protesters saying it. It's not just me saying it. Where these departments are biased and they help each other and all of this. I mean, there's even conflict when the Department of Justice is involved. So to hear this from a former officer who's acknowledging that, yes, 100%, there's pretty much almost always a bias that goes into these things where, essentially overlooking things, not really thoroughly investigating certain things, things like that. Now, when he was brought on, he looked at a bunch of different things. So Milwaukee Police Department has a 172-page report of their entire findings. He's looked at video, he's looked at the autopsy reports, he's looked at the Wauwatosa reports. Let's keep your ear on that for a minute. He's looked at crime lab reports, evidence reports, all of these types of things. Now, in looking at all these different types of documents and records and videos, all these different things, it's of his expert opinion that he does not believe that Joseph Mensah had a reasonable fear for his safety, okay, which would warrant him to fire the gun and shoot and kill Jay Anderson. He noted a very particular case. This is a Supreme Court case. This is Tennessee v. Garner, which is something to look into. So he kind of looks at these other cases. He looks at the training of the officer, police department policies, and what's called reasonable officer standard. Okay, it looks at the totality of all of the evidence, and I believe it's this Supreme Court case law, Tennessee versus Garner, with this reasonable officer standard when it comes to officer-involved shootings. This is where they developed how they're going to kind of investigate these things and where to draw their conclusions from. So based off of the totality of everything, it's of his expert opinion that Jay Anderson posed no active or no imminent threat to Joseph Mensah. Now, in another Supreme Court case, so this is Graham v. Connor, and when I say V, that means versus, so Graham v. Connor. In this talks about essentially trainings of officers, which is something else that needs to be looked at. So again, trainings, policies, all these types of things. Now, they look at these things. They look at the training. They look at background of the officer. They look at any disciplinary actions. They look at videos, the policies of the department, all of this type of stuff. And he notes, as we all know, that Joseph Mensah has, just before the Jay Anderson shooting, he has the Antonio Gonzalez shooting. Okay, Jay Anderson now becomes the second shooting. So Mensah already has one shooting under his belt. Now, anytime there's a critical incident, okay, officers would need to go to a forensic psychologist in order to be evaluated, to make sure that they are fit for duty. Okay, so any type of very critical incident that could obviously kind of mess with the officer. And we all know, and nobody should deny this, right? Officers have a very fucking tough job, right? They're going to see a lot of shit that that we'll never see. They're involved in some pretty stressful situations, and we know that with the accumulation of day to day, they're seeing some really horrific things. we do know that officers, have a hard time dealing with that. They're human fucking beings, right? We do know that officers have some PTSD, some level, whether it's, minor or pretty big when it comes to PTSD from seeing different things. So again, when there's critical incidents, and especially deadly force incidents, they really are supposed to be evaluated by a forensic psychologist. Now, they also not only need to be evaluated, but they need some sort of supervision to make sure that even after they're cleared, or while kind of undergoing all of these things, that they're maintaining their own mental health, appropriately, that they're okay. And again, because of the human nature of an officer, they're not robots. We all know this. They have personal issues that affect them, whether it's an argument with a spouse, whether it's a substance abuse issue, or a critical incident that happened. They watched a baby get murdered, or they had to shoot somebody. There's all of these different things. So we know police are affected. And regardless of whether there's a justified shooting or not, it is still going to affect them. So they have to be evaluated. So it was interesting to hear William Harmoning kind of touch upon all these different things. So the two cases that, if you guys really want to read into this. So again, Tennessee v. Garner and Graham v. Connor. So those are two very iconic cases that touch upon all those things I just mentioned. Now, again, regardless if a shooting is justified, it's definitely going to have an impact on the officer. They had to use their service weapon, potentially took a life, whatever. Now, where we know, and we kind of talked about this in the beginning. So Chief Weber of Wauwatosa indicates that Milwaukee Police Department was the sole agency involved in investigating the shooting and killing of Jay Anderson. And Weber notes this, and this is extremely important. Weber notes this in his motion to quash. Basically, he has no involvement with this. He has no information about this. So he puts this in an affidavit, a signed and notarized affidavit to the courts that he doesn't know anything about this investigation. Milwaukee Police Department is the sole agency involved. Okay. And we find out that this is not true. Okay. Now, Mr. Harmoning talks about how Wauwatosa took steps that compromised this entire investigation. And in his expert opinion, this is obviously a problem. And especially because they're now violating this law where they cannot investigate their own incident. Okay. In his expert opinion and through his testimony today, he believes strongly that evidence was compromised. Okay. Now in the video, and again, we've seen clips of this. We'll release the whole thing. I kind of have to wait on certain things, right? So in the video, he talks about the shooting position that Mensah is in. Okay. So at the time where Mensah activates his camera, okay, he's supposed to activate it as soon as he's there. He doesn't. There's no body cam, so he activates the dash cam after the shooting. Okay, he's supposed to. Now, if he activates it after, that means he's already got his gun out. Okay. Now, the great thing with all the body cams and the dash cams and all of these things is they go back 28 seconds. Okay. So the dash cam recorded him shooting Jay Anderson. Okay. Now, in the video, it's of Attorney Motley's opinion as well as Mr. Harmoning's opinion, that it very clearly shows in the video that Jay Anderson is not lunging into the passenger seat to grab a gun. And it even shows like his hands up in the air. You know, he drops his hands, he picks his hands back up. You know, and this is again kind of maintaining where he's intoxicated. He was just woken up. And the position that Mensah is in is Mensah is already backed away from the car. Okay. He is in a full stance, okay, defensive stance, firing position. All right. Already aimed at Jay Anderson. Now, in Harmoning's testimony, he states that at this point there would be no reason for Joseph Mensah to be in this position, okay? Because number one, he has no probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed, okay? Now, in Mensah's statements during the investigation, the initial investigation, Mensah indicates that he was called to this park where Jay Anderson was parked and sleeping in the car. Mensah indicates that he was called to this. There is no dispatch. There's no 911 call for anything to bring Mensah over here. And so that's problem number one with this. Okay. Now, just seeing a handgun, okay, in the car, you know, at this point, there's no probable cause, anything with the handgun, because he hasn't even checked to see, does he have, you know, a permit for the gun? Is there any type of concealed carry for the weapon? Is there any type of proper license? Is the gun a legal gun in the first place? To have the officer pull their gun and have no knowledge of what is going on with an individual's gun, especially in the state of Wisconsin, where it's an open carry state, and what we've learned by investigating some of these militias, handguns are allowed to be in the car. What are you asking, sister? Do they not normally know where what is? So there's a lot of deep stuff. But I thought this was all very interesting. And we're gonna, again, when I write up the article, we're gonna write it up. We're gonna have exact verbiages, things like that. Do they not know where each officer is? No, essentially not at any given moment, right? They know the area that officer is involved in patrolling, but to my understanding, it's not like they have necessarily a GPS maybe on every single squad car to know their exact locations. So it sounds like it sounds like Mensah's doing a routine check of this particular park, and comes across a vehicle, and then here is, you know, Jay Anderson asleep in the car. Did he proclaim that he had a weapon? He was awake, and it was on the passenger seat. So no, he's not at fault. Just pay attention, okay? So now further, so again, there's not even necessarily, like, there's no crime. There's no crime that's being committed. There is no probable cause to anything that Jay Anderson was doing. Now, the only potential issue is, possible ordinance violation for being inside of a park past, when the park closes. I believe here in Wisconsin it's 10 p.m. When a lot of these parks close. So maybe a simple ordinance violation. So based off testimony of Harmoning today, Mensah rolls up, gets out of the car, shines the light on the vehicle, and then he's in a shooting position, and he's backed away from the car on the passenger side. Okay. Now, just these aspects alone, where there's no probable cause that Jay Anderson is committing an actual crime. We don't know if the gun was legal or not legal. Mensah would not have known this at this point either. Jay Anderson we know he's intoxicated. We know he was sound asleep. Just these things alone is not consistent with police training. Okay. So this is a big thing. Okay. So again, he believes that, it's kind of hard to believe that Mensah's statements during the initial investigations, because there's these different weird, conflicts in what he's saying. Now, I found it interesting where, if you guys think, if you've ever been pulled over by law enforcement, right? You're pulled over from behind, right? You don't really ever see law enforcement in front of you. The heads of the cars, facing each other. So it's standard procedure for the officer to pull up behind you. And he's testifying that it's pretty standard across the country. Some variances, whatever. They don't have to. So, little lawyer, it's not a CCW incident. It's an open carry. They don't have to proclaim anything. But again, see, you're so concerned about the gun that you missed all of the other stuff. That we haven't even gotten to a point of asking questions about a gun because Jay Anderson is killed. He never even established anything about the gun or not, other than he saw it on a passenger seat of the car. So anyway, it's policy and training procedure to pull up behind a vehicle that you're stopping for a traffic stop, generally to stay a car length back behind the car that you pulled over, and to then be slightly offset from the car, where the reason that the squad car would be offset is because what that actually does, it provides some level of safety for the officer, where, we see a lot of times where officers are conducting a traffic stop, and somebody runs into the officer here. So it would be standard procedure for them to pull up behind you and be slightly offset so that the officer essentially has this barrier from the front of the car, his squad car, giving a little bit of protection. Now, this also helps with felony extractions from the vehicles, things like that. Again, it's a bit more protection. So Harmoning is testifying that the reality, and this is where there's the big debate about woulda, coulda, shouldas, and You know, we have people in chats all over, live streams everywhere, where, you know, everyone becomes the expert and they say what they should have done, could have done, you know, whatever. Now, here's Harmoning, testifying that Mensah essentially really had three options. Okay. The first option is that, well, let me back up here for a second. So because of the whole pull behind the vehicle, Mensah doesn't do that. Okay. Mensah pulls nose to nose with Jay Anderson. Okay. He has no protection. Okay. With the lights. Now, how many times have we been pulled over and, you know, you got the spotlight in the rear view mirror and you're like, fuck, man, I can't see. So what Harmoning is testifying is that this is actually standard procedure, and it's meant to actually blind you. That's what these lights are for anyway, but especially shining it into the rear view mirror, it's meant to actually disrupt your vision. And here's for all you Blue Lives Matter people. It's procedure to do this because the approach for an officer coming to your vehicle during a traffic stop is the most dangerous time for the officer. So what they do is they shine that light in the rear view mirror in an attempt to blind you so that you can't see them coming up. Yeah, I'm aware. Can you stop about the gun? Again, you're not listening. Pay attention. It's really simple. Okay? None of that even happened. We don't even know. Mensah doesn't even know. Why? Because he pulled the gun and shot him. He hasn't even conducted any type of stop. You focused on the wrong stuff. Pay attention and listen. I'm not going to tell you again. This is your second warning. Okay? So they're supposed to shine the light in the rear view mirror. Mensah pulls nose to nose with Jay Anderson, shines the light directly into the car. There's no protection for Mensah. Okay, so he's not following procedure to begin with. Okay, now Harmoning is stating that there's three options. Okay. That Mensah could have taken and should have taken per training, okay, where he could have approached from either side of the vehicle, okay, and he notices a gun. In training, he needs to be watching that gun, okay. So this is standard shit. So officers see a gun, that's what their focus is on, is the actual gun, okay? As of right now, though, okay, what Harmoning is stating is that, and I've said this already, that Mensah at this point has no reason to point his gun at Jay Anderson, okay? He has no reason to be in a defensive shooting stance. Okay, at this point, he has no reason to be in this position. Okay, the second thing is that you know, he could be asking Jay Anderson to step out of the car. Okay, now he believes had there been a multitude of these options actually taken, where he approaches from a different side of the car, he actually pulls up behind the car, you know, orders Anderson to get out of the vehicle, things like this. Had he taken these different steps, he believes that Jay Anderson would be alive today. Okay. Now the problem with where Mensah is standing, okay, on that passenger side and the distance that he is from, is that he can no longer see the gun. Okay, so he has no idea what Jay Anderson's hands are doing. He has no idea the placement of the gun at this point. Okay. And it's Harmoning's expert opinion in his testimony is that Jay Anderson was shot because Joseph Mensah lost sight of Jay Anderson's right hand and lost sight of the gun. And that's the only reason that he was shot, is because he lost sight of where those two things were. It's Harmoning's expert opinion that Joseph Mensah created a dangerous situation, which could have been avoided had he followed policy, had he followed his training. Again, Jay Anderson would be alive today. So it was Mensah who created the dangerous situation in the first place, just by these little things leading up to what's happened here. He testified, this is a direct quote from him, he testified that Jay Anderson didn't have a chance that night. Now, in examining the different evidences, Harmoning notes that Jay Anderson lifts his hands 5 times, and then drops them. And he found it interesting that Jay Anderson is lifting his hands multiple times. The first 4 times that Jay Anderson does this, Mensah doesn't shoot him. But something different about the 5th time that Jay Anderson lifts his hands results in Mensah shooting him. Now, later, and this was interesting to hear, is that later in the investigation, okay, now Mensah's given multiple statements, okay, later down the road in the investigation, when he's being questioned about the hands being up 5 times, Mensah all of a sudden now adds that Jay Anderson lunged for the gun. So this was not an initial statement from Mensah. This was added later on. Okay. So Harmoning specifically looks at that and finds that to be, extremely pertinent to this entire shooting. Now, what that's called, so it's called furtive movement, and that's a police term used in their reports and things. So furtive movement is a suspicion to an officer where the subject that is being detained has moved in some way, whether it's a very subtle move or it's very distinct and abrupt. So we find this later on in Mensah's testimony again, in his statements later in the investigation, that he now adds this furtive movement. Harmoning discussed how Jay Anderson is intoxicated. He has clearly been asleep for some period of time. And more than likely, he was abruptly awakened. Again, the movement of the hands, he doesn't shoot the first 4 times when he's moving his hands, but he shoots the 5th time. Okay, we're done. So that was something to note as well. Again, he testifies that Mensah again created a dangerous situation. Okay, don't worry about arguing with these people; they're just immediately getting blocked. I pretty much told everyone to just shut the fuck up and listen, and then we can discuss some things. I'm trying to give you guys the facts of what was said in the case today. Okay, I didn't make this up. I'm not analyzing this shit. I'm telling you guys what happened. Okay, everyone wants to be a fucking lawyer. So again, Mensah creates the dangerous situation. Okay. Now, Harmoning also testifies today that he has an issue with the 6 shots that were fired. Okay. So let's talk about that. Let's take a minute little break. We've kind of processed a lot here. So up until this point, with what I've said, does anybody have questions? You can start typing them. Let's take a 1 minute little safety break. And if you have questions up until this point, and then we'll get into the 6 shots that Mensah fires at Jay Anderson. All right. All right, I'm back. No questions I see came through, so we'll just keep moving on. So now on to the 6 shots. So Harmoning testifies that he has a problem with the 6 shots. Okay, this is a direct quote from him. So officers are trained, and we've heard this many times, right? And we see where protesters have a big problem with this, where officers are trained to shoot until the threat is ended. Okay. Now, where Harmoning has the issue is that the first shot went right to Jay Anderson's head. Okay. So his question is, why keep shooting? Okay. And I've said this multiple times on the platform where, okay, fine. If subject has gun, points gun at officer shoots, right? We get that. I think all of us get that none of that shit should happen. Okay. Harmoning is saying Mensah fires the first shot, which the medical examiner distinguished that the first shot was to Jay Anderson's head. Okay. Based off the direct through and through. Okay. So Harmoning's questioning, why keep shooting? Why the other 5 shots? 4 shots hit him, 2 shots missed. Okay. So if they're trained to shoot until the threat is ended, and the first shot was to Jay Anderson's head, then the threat would be ended. The gun was had Jay Anderson picked up the gun, which is something else that was noted, that he actually touched this gun. And this was also something that was stated, by Chief Weber in Joseph Mensah's recommendation letter to the Waukesha County Sheriff when hiring Mensah onto the Sheriff's Department, that Mensah was involved in 3 officer-involved shootings. All 3 subjects pointed a gun at Officer Mensah. Okay? Now, it will later be noted, I'm going to talk about this in a minute here. Had Jay Anderson had this gun in his hand, it would not have been in the passenger seat with the first shot to the head. Okay? Yes, sister, that is correct. He walked up and shot Alvin Cole, which is what killed him, while he was down. Harmoning believes that all 6 of the shots fired from Joseph Mensah at Jay Anderson were excessive. And again, he goes kind of back to the whole thing of, you have no probable cause to effectuate a detainment or an arrest. Jay Anderson has not broken a law. He's done no kind of investigation to the gun, which he doesn't have a right to do anyway. So with all of that stuff being said, and not following training protocols, would make all 6 shots to Jay Anderson excessive. So, again, we talked about where Mensah had made statements that he was called to the park. He was not. That is a lie. And Mensah had no knowledge of any type of crime that Jay Anderson was in the process of, had committed, or would be committing. So again, leading to all 6 shots being excessive use of force. Now, Joseph Mensah, and I'll get the exact verbiage, so I'm going to paraphrase this. Okay, don't hold me to this. I'll get the exact verbiage from the document when I write up my article. But basically Mensah, and again, I'm paraphrasing, okay? Basically Mensah kind of takes on this attitude of, well, what's the big deal with the amount of shots that I'm firing? Because there's multiple officers in the Wauwatosa Police Department that have fired more shots than I have, resulting in people's deaths. Okay. Now they presented, Attorney Motley presents a document to Harmoning, and he reads from this document where from January 2010 to August 2020, okay, when there's officer-involved shootings that result in death, according to what Joseph Mensah is stating during these investigations, Wauwatosa only has 3 fatal shootings, and all 3 shootings, fatal shootings, were done by Officer Mensah. So the credibility to what he's saying is, what's the big deal? Tosa PD has fired way more shots than I ever have, resulting in deaths. What is the problem? So none of that's actually true. He's the only one that's killed people. Now, if we go back to Weber's letter of recommendation, where, again, some of this stuff I kind of keep mentioning, Weber puts in the letter of recommendation to Waukesha County Sheriff to recommend Joseph Mensah be hired, that all 3 individuals, Antonio Gonzalez, Jay Anderson, and Alvin Cole, were all 3 individuals that pointed a gun at Officer Mensah and refused to put down the weapon. Okay. Now, based off the video, based off Harmoning's testimony today, based off all these documents, based off all these things, even the inconsistent stories with Mensah, Jay Anderson never pointed a gun at Joseph Mensah. Never pointed a gun at him. Okay. Now, Attorney Motley presents another document to Harmoning, which is the Wauwatosa policy when it comes to vehicle training, vehicle position, and this is what I kind of talked about before, where you see in the video you have Jay Anderson Jr. parked, and then you have Joseph Mensah parks in front of him. They're nose to nose. There is some distance. So they're talking about this document. They're talking about this policy, the vehicle positioning, pulling up behind a car, which is a proper way to effectuate a traffic stop, the car length behind, shining the spotlight in the rearview mirror, all of that type of stuff. Okay, so he's testifying to all these different points of why they conduct traffic stops the way that they do. And with Mensah, the way that he pulled up, again, creates a dangerous situation for himself as well as Jay Anderson. He believes that Mensah's position was unsafe. He believes that there was no way for Mensah to approach the vehicle without blinding Jay Anderson, to where Mensah would now be illuminated instead of hidden from the blinding light. He would be illuminated now, and all of these types of things are inconsistent with Mensah's training. Okay, now, because there is a spotlight on him, it would still, obscure Jay Anderson's line of vision. And because he was blinded from the front, he would not be able to see Joseph Mensah, regardless of where Mensah is standing. He would not be able to see him. So Harmoning, touches on this stuff too. Now, Weber states, okay, in this motion to quash, which we talked about a bit earlier, that Milwaukee PD is the only department that is conducting the investigation. Weber files this motion to quash because he has no pertinent information. All these things. He's giving out all these excuses. Now, one thing I found to be interesting is that Attorney Motley kept asking the medical examiner about Chief Weber showing up to the medical examiner's office at any point during the autopsy and all of this. And the medical examiner is saying, no, Chief Weber was not present when I did the autopsy. Had he come, this would have been logged. I would have, needed to know this type of stuff. All these different things. Now, Attorney Motley asks Harmoning about Wauwatosa. Weber says that Wauwatosa didn't take any reports. They didn't investigate anything. Okay, and Harmoning testifies today that is not accurate. That's not a factual statement by Chief Weber. That no Wauwatosa officers investigated and no Wauwatosa officers wrote any reports. Again, he talks about Wauwatosa compromising the crime scene. Okay, there's a document that lists out all of the Wauwatosa police officers that were on the scene and effectuated some type of investigation. Now, remember in the beginning, for those of you that have been here the entire time, the first witness that comes up, Hakeem Fudge, so that's Jay Anderson's friend that was out with him that night, He testifies that they went to a bar, they got ID'd at the bar, and because they both presented IDs, you know, they were able to get into the bar and drink. Now, Mensah, again, in statements given during the investigation, okay, Mensah talks about, you know, says that there is no ID. He asks Jay Anderson for identification, and he can't present his, you know, his ID. Mensah states, you know, another time that there's just no identification whatsoever. Another thing, he states that now Jay Anderson actually responded back to him and says that that Anderson tells him that he doesn't have an ID. Now, again, reverting back to Hakeem Fudge's testimony, they needed the ID to get into the bar. Okay, so Mensah is making these statements during the investigation that Jay Anderson has no ID. Okay, now what's interesting to note is that Wauwatosa Police Department ends up going through Jay Anderson's pockets. Okay, now mind you, according to Wisconsin statute, okay, 175.47, the involved agency is not allowed to fucking be anywhere near this crime scene, and you have Wauwatosa going through Jay Anderson's pockets. Okay, now an officer, and I believe this is Officer Salyers, so he logs that he finds a cell phone, he finds a clear bag with a green plant, okay, which everyone's assuming that this is, you know, marijuana. He finds currency, and he finds the ID, okay, Jay Anderson's ID. Now, again, Mensah states that there is no ID, okay. Salyers logs down the stuff that's in Anderson's pockets, but in the report, he does not specify the location of the ID, okay. Now, they stated that the the things that were in the pocket, they put in the report, and we'll do. I don't want to say the wrong thing. So when I write the article, so I might be a little off on this, but basically, I think it was they stated that these things were in Jay Anderson's right pocket, okay, which is where his hands would have been, but he cannot all of a sudden, he cannot specify the location of where the ID is, okay? Now, later on, Milwaukee Police Department goes through Jay Anderson's pockets, okay? Now, mind you, Tosa says the shit's in the right pocket. Milwaukee later goes through Jay Anderson's pockets and notes that they pulled these items from his left pocket, okay? So you have evidence that's compromised. Tosa should not have been there. Okay. Now, when it comes to the gun, okay, so this is another thing where, now, from what we know is that the agency that's involved in the shooting, if the threat is still imminent, okay, then that agency can handle the gun. Okay, and if I'm wrong about that, please somebody correct me. But from my understanding, as long as there's still the imminent threat, the agency can handle the gun. So even if they shoot somebody, the person is still alive, they are allowed to take the gun and move it to a safe distance so that there is no more threat. And that's the only time that the agency is allowed to handle this stuff. Okay, now Jay Anderson is already dead. Okay, he's shot 4 times, 3 times in the head and the face, and then once in the shoulder. Okay, the gun is sitting on the passenger seat. Okay, now you see in video, and this is very crucial. Okay, and this is where more, you know, I really encourage all of those people that stop at black male had gun, officer shoots. Okay, I really encourage you to watch these things. Pay attention. Okay, so now you watch the entire video, which again we'll end up releasing. You watch the entire video, okay? Wauwatosa, who's on the scene, removes the gun from the passenger seat of the car, okay? And they're handling this gun, all right? What you'll see in the video, and when we release it, we'll probably do a live and we'll talk about it. But Harmoning is basically kind of, in his testimony today, he is talking about these things kind of step by step in the video. And we see Tosa remove the gun. We see Tosa handling this gun. Then what we see from the dash cam footage from Mensah's car is you have Wauwatosa police officers walking backwards while they're handling this gun so that they're not in frame of the camera. And they're trying to like wave people out of the way of what the camera is specifically, you know, angled at and filming. So Harmoning makes note of this, that there's something very fucking weird, very suspicious about the way their movement and how, one, they're handling the gun, two, how they're walking backwards and trying to be out of view of the camera, and then calling other officers to also be out of view of the camera, okay? He testifies today in regards to the guns, Mensah's gun, which has to be taken into evidence. That's any investigation. They do ballistics testings. They do all these things, make sure the gun was fired, blah, 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 right? Okay. Now, there is no, they take Mensah's gun, okay, and they remove all of the bullets from Mensah's gun, okay? And that's how we determined that, I believe it was, there were 9 bullets left in Mensah's gun, which accounts for the 6 shots that he had shot. Then they come to Jay Anderson's gun, okay? Now, in initial reports, they just mentioned they clear the gun, okay? Now, Harmoning testifies to, we don't exactly know what that means. Does that mean that they took the clip out of the gun? They emptied the chamber? If there was a bullet in the chamber? Does that mean that they just chambered the gun to make sure that there was no bullet in the chamber? And that's how they cleared it, okay? So it's just mentioned in initial reports that the gun is cleared, okay? Now, in a later report, okay, now all of a sudden there are, now there's bullets accounted for Jay Anderson's gun, okay? So Harmoning is really touching upon the fact that you have misinformation, inconsistent statements, inconsistent reports between Wauwatosa PD and Milwaukee PD, okay? I believe it was Milwaukee PD that did the guns. So Harmoning is really touching upon this. Now again, Wauwatosa should not have fucking been there, okay? So Attorney Motley is asking all these different questions. She's providing these different documents, and she's specifically asking, so we have a ridiculous number of Wauwatosa police officers who are actively conducting investigations. You have officers that are going around the area, trying to see if anybody was a witness to the shooting, to see if anybody heard anything, saw anything. Wauwatosa PD is doing this, okay? She asks Harmoning, is this appropriate? He says, absolutely not. She asks, there's 4 days later, officers, again, canvassing the area to see if there's witnesses. This is Wauwatosa PD again. She asks if this is appropriate. He says, absolutely not. Wauwatosa Police Department going through Jay Anderson's pocket. She asks if this is appropriate. He says, absolutely not. Very close. They're right next door, Lexi. Then with Wauwatosa Police Department handling the gun. And then the inconsistencies when it comes to bullets, and now there's bullets here, there's not bullets there. Where's the bullets? Now we have bullets. All these different types of things. Pulling the gun out of the vehicle, walking backwards to a camera. asked if this is appropriate. Harmoning testifies that it is not. Now, here's what's very interesting. Okay. With Detective Lewandowski, who again we've released some video footage of Detective Lewandowski interviewing some protesters. Isaiah has released some documents when it comes to Detective Lewandowski. Okay, Detective Lewandowski should not be fucking interviewing anybody. Okay. None of these Wauwatosa people should be interviewing anybody. Okay. They're interviewing fire department personnel. And he highlights that we're violating, statute where a department cannot investigate themselves and conduct investigations during this shit. So here we have Detective Lewandowski, who's interviewing fire department personnel and other people that are on the scene. And Harmoning is testifying that it's not only inappropriate, but people that are being interviewed by said officer or, said agency that's investigating if this happens somewhere else, that these people can be highly influenced. Okay, so if you have a Wauwatosa Fire Department personnel and they're being interviewed then by a Wauwatosa detective, these people can be influenced during their interview in the statements that they're making. Okay, now let's go back to Chief Weber. When it comes to Chief Weber and his motion to quash, okay, Chief Weber again states that he did not conduct the investigation. Wauwatosa was not involved in this investigation. And Attorney Motley has now handed 10 different documents of Wauwatosa with reports. Okay. Remember, she's consistently asking the question of, was Chief Weber anywhere near Jay Anderson's body during medical examinations? Okay. She asks William Harmoning today if he had any knowledge of Chief Barry Weber being around Jay Anderson's body. Harmoning testifies today, yes, he has knowledge of Chief Weber being around Jay Anderson's body. Now, mind you, Chief Weber has filed a motion to quash because he was never near the body. He has no pertinent information to the investigation. None of his officers investigated anything to do with the Jay Anderson shooting. Okay, so we've already proved now that per documents that Chief Weber has lied, not just once, but multiple times. Now, here's the really important shit. With this whole thing of Chief Weber has never been around Jay Anderson's body, Harmoning's testifying that he in fact was, there is a document of Chief Weber admitting in this document that he viewed Jay Anderson's body and he viewed the entrance wounds to Jay Anderson. But Chief Weber has never been near the body and he doesn't know anything about the investigation. Okay. Attorney Motley asks Harmoning at this point, is it appropriate for the chief to be involved anywhere near the medical examiner's office and anywhere near this body? And Harmony says, absolutely not. It is not appropriate. The chief, especially out of all the officers involved, the chief should not be anywhere near this because he's a chief of police. Therefore, he holds a very high amount of influence. So somebody, if the medical examiner is testifying that she has no knowledge of Chief Weber being around this body, somebody let Chief Weber in without the medical examiner's knowledge so that Chief Weber could review the body. Okay. So Harmoning testified today that Wauwatosa PD should have only safeguarded the scene. Okay, so once the incident is done, okay, Jay Anderson is slumped over in the car and he has perished. Tosa PD should have held the scene until Milwaukee PD shows up. At this point, Milwaukee PD takes over the scene and Wauwatosa exits. And that is not what happened. Okay, so again, Harmoning testifies that crucial evidence has been compromised. And we have a police department who has blatantly and openly lied about a lot of different elements involved in this shooting, as well as their involvement with the investigation. So that is kind of where we're at with the breakdown. So, you know, again, I'm going to end up writing I'm going to write an article on this. I'm going to be a bit more thorough in my writing. I'm going to pull, because I paraphrased a little bit of things. Fucking pain in the ass trying to write all of this shit down. I have pages of fucking notes from court. We weren't allowed to record anything, which sucked. And then obviously the video, I don't believe, was saved. We're trying to see if anybody screen recorded it, which would be helpful. So it's kind of where we're at right now. I'm going to write an article. I'm going to be a bit more in depth, and then some of the verbiages that I paraphrased, we're going to take from the actual documents, who said what, when they said it, why they said it, blah, 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 blah. We adjourned at 5 p.m. today. That was per judge's instructions. Even at the beginning, he doesn't go past 5. They are not done with the testimony from William Harmoning. So Attorney Motley, I believe, is going to try to get him back out here. He's from Baton Rouge now, is where he resides. So he kind of left the Midwest and he's down in Baton Rouge now. So she is going to try to get him back in person, but if not, it'll be a Zoom testimony. If you thought that this element of what this was fucking bizarre and wowing, there's going to be some more that will be coming out in Harmoning's testimony. Again, we said this in the beginning. Joseph Mensah files a motion to quash his subpoena. That we all expected that to happen. That is probably not going to be an argument that Attorney Motley will win. Joseph Mensah, it's already been kind of expected that Mensah will plead the Fifth, which is within his constitutional right to do. It's not necessarily a bad thing if Joseph Mensah pleads the Fifth, because the Fifth Amendment, you can only plead the Fifth if you believe that you might be implementing or incriminating yourself in a crime. Okay, so if Joseph Mensah believes he's innocent of shooting and killing Jay Anderson Jr., and it's a justified shooting, he's righteous in what he did, there should be no reason why he couldn't testify. So it is expected that Mensah will plead the Fifth. Barry Weber, however, cannot plead the Fifth because he was not involved in the shooting. So that will actually be a legal argument. That hearing is scheduled for a separate time and day, and we'll let you know exactly when that is. Now, again, on the CCAP that we've posted somewhere here in the comments some time ago, there are some dates that are already listed. Per Judge Yamahiro, right now those are tentative dates. Some things may change based off some of the evidence exhibits that have been presented already, and then based off these motion to quash arguments. So yeah, so that's, you know, that's kind of that so far. So I wanted to kind of break that down for some people that missed this, or that saw it and maybe, you know, had been confused. So we're going to continue to cover this. Now that this stuff has become evidence, it has become of public record, you know, more so than it was. Again, we're gonna start releasing some stuff so you guys can see these things. We're gonna cover some articles with some direct verbiages, quotes, things like that. So, so yeah, I'm gonna end up ending this stream, and then we'll come back and we'll just have Kevin talk and not Never Stop Media. That's why I didn't allow disruptions tonight. So we'll kind of chew the fat in the second live here. But for now, for the intensive purposes of what we've discussed, and I know some of you came in late, but does anybody have questions pertinent to what we discussed today and what the testimonies were, and things like that? So I thought this was very interesting. This is not stuff where, you know, unfortunately, in all of these shootings, we're getting these clips. You know what I mean? We get these tiny little fragments of information, and I can see where a lot of people say, okay, well, individual pointed fucking gun, officer shoots individual with gun, criminal dies, right? I understand. I get that. But if we're just going to leave it at that, and we're going to take blatant ignorance to then no longer pay attention to the case, like we've seen with some of the commentary that came in the beginning, where people were saying he pointed a gun at an officer, he did this. If they would have just shut the fuck up long enough, they would hear in testimony that Jay Anderson never pointed a gun at Joseph Mensah. So, yeah, you know, and I think it's very important. There was a lot of information that came out today that, you know, the general public was not privy to. You know, and we're looking at a potential situation if these testimonies continue to go this way, where we may actually end up seeing. And obviously it's a little too early to really judge this, but we may end up seeing Judge Yamahiro enter down an order to actually file charges against Joseph Mensah. So yeah, this video I'm going to keep up because it's a breakdown, and we didn't allow any bullshit tonight. So I gave the trollers permission to troll me in the next video, but they didn't fucking listen. So a lot of them are not going to be able to troll ever again. So yeah, if does anybody have questions about what we've discussed? If not, I'm going to end this, and then I'm going to come back live, and then we can just talk openly. So I wanted to make sure just that facts were brought out today in this video, and it wasn't jumbled with a bunch of trolling or my opinions of something or anything like that. So does anybody have any questions? If not, again, we're going to end this, and then I'll redo a live, and we'll come back and we'll just all shoot the shit. Be expected to have some trolling, because I did give them permission to fucking troll me later on. Which is probably a fucking mistake, but whatever. J Bean says wait. Yes, go ahead. Go. What's your question, J Bean? Go. Jamie says, I don't have the patience. Yeah, we silenced a lot of the big ones, Jamie, so it should be all right. That Patriot dude was fucking silenced because he can't listen, and then your buddy Jake behind enemy lines couldn't shut the fuck up long enough, and he's done talking. We allowed him to stay the other night when he came in because he wasn't too off the wall. But we gave him some business for sure. I heavily talked shit. But yeah, I mean, everyone was warned tonight. I'm not tolerating it tonight. So the cop who testified today, so that's a former law enforcement officer. His name is William Harmoning, Harmoning, William Harmoning. He is a former law enforcement officer. I believe he said 37 years. And he's done some teaching when it comes to different things, involved in criminology, a professor of criminology, and he now is like a forensics person when it comes to officer-involved shootings. Yeah, I know it's not your buddy. I was being facetious, but yeah, you missed that one. But don't worry, the entire chat fucked with him. Harmony worked with Mensah? Where? When? Oh, you thought he worked with Mensah? No, no, he did. He's not worked with Mensah. He's actually he is a former law enforcement officer, originally out of Illinois, and he's kind of worked primarily the Midwest, and now he's located in Baton Rouge. He's worked approximately 200 cases, give or take, in 31 states. And again, he's worked the Dontre Hamilton case. So that was here in Milwaukee. When it comes to the civil suit, so we may see if this works. We may see, maybe even if this doesn't work, but because this is obviously another option for individuals, families to go this route, filing these John Doe hearings. So we may see where the Dontre Hamilton case goes through this, because that case is equally as fucked up as this one, if not more. Dontre Hamilton was another individual that was sleeping when an encounter broke out with law enforcement, and he was fired upon a bajillion amount of times. So we may see a John Doe hearing in the future when it comes to Dontre Hamilton. And then he is actively involved in currently in the George Floyd trial. So he is an expert witness in that trial as well. So what else? Any other questions? Then we'll end this, and then I'll jump on it. We'll do a second live where we're just talking to viewers, shooting the shit. You'll get my opinion on some stuff. Most of the trolls have now been silenced. You know, there's still 10,000 more of them. But we silenced a good bit of them today. If you guys could hit the thumbs up on this video, let's counter these thumbs down. You know, they like to do this stuff. They're just screwing with us. This video is going to stay up. Please share this video out for those that have not kind of seen the thing today. Maybe we can get some more attention brought on, because there are multiple more court dates with witness testimony. This will be going on for a little while. So yeah. Okay. So it looks like no other questions. All right, so I'm going to end this now, and then I'll pop back up, okay? And then we'll all just hang out and shoot the shit. All right? Thanks, guys.